we'll leave it at that. Good evening, Olson, Esther, Necessary, Steffi. Steffi, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. So there it is in all its glory. Neptune just flipped direct today. Now, of course, with Neptune moving so slow, the build-up has been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then we are going to live through the shadow phase, coming out into direct motion for weeks, if not months to come. So, as far as I'm concerned, today is a very big day in astrology. It doesn't look like much. I mean, it's just another day. The planets are just whizzing around, doing their thing. And all the planets that look like they're going backwards eventually start to look like they're going forward. And today's a big day for Neptune. Neptune's going direct. And it's playing out in very predictable ways. So right now, Neptune is in Pisces at the very high 20-degree marks area. So there's a lot of pressure building up. And Neptune is in its own home. It's on the global scale, it's in the 12th house, the house of hidden enemies, the house of secrets, the house of karma coming at you. Anything to do with denial of reality will hurt. Words that I've been using for a long time now on, yes, I'm up in the lab right now. Things got a little bit crazy on Earth, and so I took a little break. I'm up in my own little, it's not really a space station, it's more like a little compact version of it. I got a deal going with Elon. He lets me play around in this and play with all the gadgets and everything, and I send him some notes, and every now and again I do an actual free astrology and tarot reading. Yeah, it works pretty well. Me too. No sleep last 2 nights. Well, there's all sorts of things going on. But so I was talking to Love Triber the other day, anticipating this moment in time, and here we are. So Saturn is at 0 to 1 degree in Pisces. Neptune's about 24 degrees Pisces. Where is it? 20? Yeah, 24. It's about 24 degrees Pisces. And the pressure is going to build. And what I've been predicting is that all the lies, betrayal, deception, blackmail, coercion, perversion, manipulation, fraud, abuse, treachery, treason, fake anything, fake people, fake ideologies, fake belief system that defy anything to do with love or common sense, they're going to be exposed in their lunacy. And it's happening. It's happening all over China. It's happening all over America. It's actually happening all over the world, while people's belief systems are crumbling when they discover that they've been defrauded. They've been living in a world of lies and deception and theft and betrayal. A lot of people since they were born. Let me look at this. Let me do a chart over here. This is going to be a kind of a strange video. It's coming from all over the place. I'm not going to do an astrodoodle, and I'll show you why. Okay, I'm going to do... Okay, this is representing one Pluto cycle, okay? So, here we are, 1776. Okay, we talked about that. Pluto is in Capricorn, 27.5 degrees, okay? So it's very, very close to the crisis point, very close to the cusp, okay? And over here we are in 2024 at the same place. Pluto is in the same place. Okay, So this is 248 years. All right? And I've been studying all these math and science and mostly financial studies regarding economic cycles, empire cycles, the cycles of empires, and in particular the United States. USA! Go America! And you can divide this roughly into 4 batches of 62 years. Every 62 years we reach a crisis point. Just like every 7 years we have a crisis point with Saturn as we go through the journey of a whole Saturn cycle. So Saturn journey is about 7 years per quarter. The reason I mention per quarter is because every time the planet goes a quarter of the way through its cycle relative to whatever the start point is measured, there will be a crisis point of massive squared energy to where it started. So that will be pressure, pressure, pressure. Excuse me. So, what people have been talking about is dividing the Pluto cycle, or dividing, forget Pluto, okay? I'm just talking about the American Empire, or empires in general. They follow this 248-year pattern all around the world, multiples of this, or sections of this. Now, if we divide it in time into 4 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. Now the section I'm going to focus on is here. Okay? Have you heard the expression, hard times breed strong men? Okay, that's over here. That's the founding fathers of the United States, all this stuff, the Revolutionary Wars, people dying for freedom, to claim their freedom, and creating this new thing called the United States, formalized through the Declaration of Independence, and then the details were written in the Constitution a few years later. All of this happened during periods of intense warfare as people were fighting against the tyrants to claim their freedom. And so that was born. America was born. Okay? So over the next 62 years, America went through this birth phase of growth. It was a very, very tough period, but the founding fathers prevailed and created something that had never really existed before in the human life experience. In other words, a deliberately, consciously drafted declaration of how life is going to be. It's only understanding that this will only work when you have really good people who come from a loving perspective and who are moral and just and care about things above their own greed and aggrandization. In other words, they care about their families, their friends, their loved ones. They care about nature, animals, trees, plants, and freedom, and the right to protect and defend themselves. So that became very well established in the first 62 years. It was very, very hard to do, and the really toughest, strongest guys ruled during that time, the early presidents. This created really good times and set the stage for things to prosper. And that was roughly 1870 to roughly 1910. Okay? So that's another 62-year period. Now, during this time, the United States really became what the founding fathers had envisioned. There was complete freedom, and people could say what they want, and they had the right to do it and protect and defend themselves. If you wanted to be a murderer, an outlaw, a criminal, you could do that, but you might suffer the consequences. If you wanted to farm some land and create families and communities and free trade enterprise and enjoy the incredible bounty of the United States, you could do that. After that period came another section of, it's almost like, okay, here, I'll do it. Section 1. Hard times breed strong men. Strong men breed good times. So we're planting seeds here, okay? Good times breed weak men. So 62 years later, right around the year 1971, 72, whatever, we reached an inflection point where things got really, really bad. And I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. Good times breed weak men. And so the weak men started appearing about here, the late 50s, 60s. But really, it actually began here with the bankers, the Federal Reserve institutionalized, income tax, corporation tax, sales tax, World War I, World War II, and then all the other permanent wars ever since. There's World War I, World War II, okay? And then after that, it's permanent war to where we are today. And the inflection point came at around 1971-72 when the United States abandoned the gold standard. Okay? Why am I saying that? They nixed it because the criminals running the United States by this time, the good times breed weak men. The weak men are the people who betray their people, betray their country for self-aggrandizement. They lose any sense of love. They deliberately undermine everything that was built in order for them to harvest and prosper all the goodness that was built here. This was the beginning of the bad times. And now we reach over here in the 70s up to where we are today. The good times breed weak men, and the weak men breed hard times. Okay, since 1971, especially from the 80s onwards, that's when the maximum levels of betrayal occurred. Massive explosion in the federal government in the United States. I'll just call it U.S. Fed. And massive fraud and corruption in the American banking financial system to create what we have here today, which is a complete, absolute train wreck. Now, to me it's very sad, but again, the Founding Fathers knew that this would happen. So all of this is outlined in the Constitution. In other words, what they wrote over here is a reminder, by the way, everybody, dear Americans, in a couple of hundred years from now, when you get to this section of the growth of your wonderful place, there are people who are going to try and destroy it through fraud, theft, betrayal, lies, deception. And as we got to the last few years here, it amplified to an astronomical scale, which is where we are now. And that's all being perpetrated by the United States Federal Reserve banking system in collusion with the United States federal government. It's turned into a massive, cancerous organism that is eating up and destroying everything that was good over here. So why did I mention gold here? Well, this was the point where reality was suspended, okay? Because the banks and the central bank, the Federal Reserve, and the United States government realized we can't keep defrauding the American people unless we decouple from gold and just declare that money is whatever we declare it is and screw reality. And so that's what they did. And the rest of the world had no choice, and no one else understood what was happening, but that's what they did. And so from that point onwards, there was an incredible, unstoppable journey to massive inflation, which means eventual poverty, which is what has happened today. The United States has been it's like a massive train wreck. It's like a piece of roadkill. And all the beautiful energy that was built here has been extracted by these evil people, because they tell you that what they're really trying to do is save you. Vote for me and I will save you. But that's just what turns into what we now today call Marxist communism, because that's when that stuff started around here. And they figured out, they realized the masses, the people are so stupid, they're so gullible. We just have to tell them to vote for me and I will save you, and they'll do it. Because we have impoverished them, so now we're going to save them. So here we are today, but let me go back to here. During this period, from here to here, everything was based on gold. There was a gold standard. There were currencies issued by many, many different banks, and it's what was called free banking. And banks could grow or die. They could be very stable or they could be very unstable. That's free market banking. But they all defaulted to gold. And so from this period here, this was when America really built the deep roots and foundations for the incredible abundance that we have today. And it was all based on gold. And when we reach this kind of peak prosperity moment, I think they call it the Gilded Age. Now, of course, there were incredible disparities at this time. There was astronomical wealth in this country like no one had ever seen before. And there were a lot of, working class people and middle class people who enabled that to happen under the leadership of these plutocrats, the folks who ran the coal, the Carnegie Coal and the J.P. Morgan Chase banking, all that kind of stuff. But it was all based on gold. And so there was prosperity. You could actually buy land, buy a horse and buggy, buy a car. And at this point, there was so much wealth. And the perverts over here decided, well, that's not cool. We can't have all that wealth in the hands of the individuals. We need to extract that wealth now that it has been built. So it took them about 62 years to make that happen because they couldn't just flip a button. Anyway, during this period here, it's a 62-year period, this is when we actually had what's called deflation. And that today is a scary word. People are terrified of deflation because the stock prices, house prices, and asset prices are so inflated with fake numbers and there's so much invested in the fake numbers that if it all fell apart and the truth was revealed, all the perpetrators of the fraud would end up in deep trouble. Okay? All the people like BlackRock, Vanguard, the banks, the banksters, the feds, they would lose their power if we ended up in a deflation where prices go down. In a true market that is not manipulated by the Fed and the Treasury and the U.S. Fed, when we get to a point where we are right now, there would naturally be a deflation. Prices would crash. Housing prices would crash. Car prices would crash. And we would get back to a realistic number. The price of something is a representation of the value of something. And right now, the price tag of American assets bears no correlation to the value. It's defunct. And that's inevitable when you perpetuate the extreme fraud that's being perpetuated on the American people. And that fraud is being expanded and exported to the rest of the world. It's going to collapse. We're going to see it collapsing in real time, some way, somehow. Going back to here, there is no gold standard here. Hasn't been a gold standard for 62 years. Okay? And that's what's allowed such incredible inflation and incredible fraud. And they got away with it. The fraudsters got away with it. But now we, the people, are starting to understand the game and how it works. I'm trying to help people understand the game and how it works. So going back over here, there's this word called deflation. What we have over here is all the inflation, inflating stock prices, inflating asset prices. The more and more the value of our dollar goes down because of excessive, extreme, sick, perverted printing of fake money, the more and more the asset prices go up because they're just pumping money into it. And the people who benefit are the people who run the printing presses, of course, and the BlackRocks and the Vanguards and the big oil companies and big agro and big media, of course. We all know that. Big transportation, big tech, big communications, all of that stuff. They're the ones who benefit at the expense of everybody else. It's a racket, and the racket has been exposed. Now, back in this time here, because everything had a fixed gold standard, gold was highly prized and understood as something that had genuine value. And this, in this era over here, as more and more people worked harder and harder and harder, the value of their dollar went up and up and up and up. That translated into wealth and abundance for we the people, for the masses. They realized, I can work hard, I can work my land, because back then it was a completely agrarian society. The Industrial Revolution didn't happen till about here, okay? So back then it was all about real stuff, commodities, corn, cattle, pigs, chickens, timber, water, cement, concrete, labor, construction, natural gifts and talents that had value. And all that value went up and up and up and up. And that was reflected in how many dollars that you had. And as the dollars had a stable, let's say, reference point with gold, what happened is, let's say you were really smart and you worked hard, you had a family farm or something, and you were successful and you had a good season, or like 10 years of good seasons, then the value of your land, your goods, your products and services would go up and up and up. And your dollar value would go up and up and up and up. And guess what that did? It put the prices down. In other words, you could work hard, earn, save, and invest money, and 10 years later, the land would be cheaper in terms of dollar signs. The house would be cheaper in terms of dollar signs because there was a fixed reference point. So by the time we got up to 1910, there was a lot of real wealth built into the American society. And that real wealth was mostly owned by we the people. Millions and millions of farmers, mostly. Farmers and traders and craftspersons and artisans in hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of little towns all across America, operating in a free trade, free market, capitalist environment, okay? We were protected and defended by our Constitution, and we had straightforward laws. So if you tried to mess with that, you'd be in trouble. And then the Industrial Revolution happened over here. You know, they found that, coal happened around here. And then oil and gas discovered around here. And then in the most outrageous expansion here, you know, in the 20th century, mind-boggling things happened in America that had never happened anywhere on earth before. And America turned into this glorious thing. Everybody wanted it. Everybody thought America was amazing. Americans were rich. When I was a little kid, and I traveled a lot when I was a little kid, I went to all sorts of different places because my mom and dad traveled a lot. You could see the wealth of the American dollar. The value of the American dollar was stupendous. So you could go to another country and your dollar would be so valuable that you could get a lot from somewhere else. No other country had that. The bosses of the bosses, in other words, the banksters and the federal government and the big corporate titans, the monopolists and the cartels, they didn't like that. They got greedy. They wanted everything that we had. So they figured out how to do that. We've talked about that over and over. And they had to do that through deliberate fraud, deception, betrayal, lies, theft, coercion. And that's what they did. And that's where we are today. Yes, I am idealizing it. I see that, Esther. In this time here, I had grandparents, during this time here. And they were dirt poor farmers. But they were happy people. They built wealth. They built serious wealth, starting out of dirt, nothing. I've seen pictures of my dad and his family when they lived in a house the size of a mobile home, a double-wide mobile home. And it was basically a wooden, very basic wooden structure with a family of about, I think, 11 people. A mom and a dad and a grandpa and all the sons and daughters. And my father was barefoot. And he would have to walk to a well to get water. He'd have to walk to go to school and walk to come back. And during the time here, my dad figured out, I want a bit of the good stuff. And so he found enough money to educate himself in a college in Arizona and switched into a suit and tie lifestyle, and he participated with my mother during the glory days of the American economy. Anyway, the point that I'm making out here today, this is just one thing I want to get a bunch of things out today while I can, because I'm kind of frightened but also thrilled. So with this deflation thing, there was nothing evil about the word deflation, because all it indicated is that you're doing really well, your dollar is more and more valuable, and the price of things represents very accurately the value of something, because it was very pure, kind of pristine, free market capitalism. Trading dollars and currencies, local banks, for corn, for mules, for horses, for timber, for construction, for concrete, for education, whatever it was. Now, there's another word here called deflation, but it's happening over here, and they're terrified. They're terrified of the word deflation, because what's happened is the price tags that we have today, like an average, what is it? 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or maybe a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom American suburban house. You're looking at $400,000, okay? $400,000. I talked about that a while ago. When my dad bought his house somewhere around here, it was $13,000, and it was a good deal, fair price. $13,000. The same house today, it's identical. A couple of trees have changed. The lawn is identical. The neighborhood is identical. I've checked it out on Google Earth 3D. And that same house is about $380,000. Why? It's because of inflation. And so all these inflated asset prices represent a supposed value. Okay? And the people who own all those assets are really now the banks, the Federal Reserve Bank, and the big stockholders of the stockholders, like BlackRock, Vanguard, and so on. And the people who invest in BlackRock and Vanguard and so on. And it's a terrifying prospect that this could all collapse. In other words, in a free open market right now, let's say a house is $500,000. A really nice house is $500,000. Almost nobody in America can afford to do that anymore, even with a 30-year mortgage. You can't do it. So the banksters are trying to extend it to 35 to 40 years. It's insane. Just in anything to keep the price up, the actual figure up there. Because the prospect of the price crashing according to real market, in other words, like what's happening in China, they're actually suffering deflation and because it's worse than deflation, it's an implosion. It's not happening in America because we're printing money to keep these asset prices inflated, but it's destroying the rest of us. So, in a free market capitalist exchange like what happened here, if people couldn't afford to buy their houses, they would just stop buying them. If they couldn't afford the mortgage because of the interest rates and the terms, they just wouldn't buy them. And the sellers wouldn't be able to sell because there's no one to buy. And eventually the sellers would go, damn it, I'm just going to have to lower the price. And the buyers still don't buy. And then the seller says, oh, I'm going to have to lower the price some more. And the buyers still don't buy. But eventually you reach parity, where the price is now down low enough where a legitimate, healthy buyer could go, you know what, I think I could afford that. It's completely out of touch with the reality at the moment. And the banksters have to keep it that way because pretty much everything in America is vested through BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Eaton Vance, and all of those, in order for Social Security and pension funds and investment packages, retirement packages to survive. So what happens if asset prices collapse? That means BlackRock, Vanguard, and all the others, they implode as well in real time. And that's such a terrifying prospect that the feds and the banksters are doing everything they can to stop it happening, even though that's the only way you can actually resolve things. So what happens is you get to a point of complete fraud where it's fully exposed, and what can you do? Well, you can do what they're doing in South America, over in hold on. I'm sorry I'm ranting, but I got to get this out. You can do what they're doing now in Netherlands, Holland, and in Argentina. Javier Milei has basically said, I understand everything that's happening in the United States. If anybody in the United States wants to see how bad it can get, just come to Argentina and I will show you. This is how bad it will get if you allow the current administration and all the banksters to do what they do. Do you really want to live that way? Do you want to end up with 140% inflation and a useless, worthless peso? No. So Milei is basically saying, okay, enough is enough is enough. He's blowing up the system, and he's going to peg to the dollar, and they're going to create a crash, an actual real live deflation, which is good for the people. It's bad for the banksters. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out because it's becoming common knowledge now in the United States. Most Americans can drive around, walk around. They can see it. The most obvious, of course, is the price of things. Price of food, 30, 35, 40% inflation on food in the last 2 years. Same thing with automobiles, like 25 to 35% inflation. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. There's no reason for that to happen. We're a very wealthy country, but it's been so perverted and destroyed. Remember, Neptune travels for about 14 years through the sign. So we've been dealing with this for the last 14 years. And now as we get to the point of critical mass over the next couple of years, Neptune is going to reach the 29-degree mark. And I've got a chart somewhere. Saturn is going to conjoin Neptune. It's going to be cataclysmic, okay? Because anything that is fake will fail. Anything, okay? And we're building up to it right now. The early stages of the fakery, let me just close out here a minute. I hope this little rant was useful to somebody. I was just trying to help. Anyway, when we go back to this moment here, we're re-entering a new version of this, because this just goes on and on and on and on and on forever. We're basically going back to this. And so what I'm praying for is that over the next 62 years, of course I'm not going to make it that far, but over the next 62 years, we're going to reconstitute the Constitution. We're going to rebuild this. Everything's going to blow up. There's going to be revolutionary wars. The United States is already being deliberately destroyed from the inside out by the elites. And that's part of their plan, because that's how they actually extract even more wealth from you, the people. So we've lived through this, and we're going to reset and go back over here. But we're at this point of critical mass right now. We're at the cusps here. I showed you about that just the other day in my new ephemeris, didn't I? Where is it? Let me show you. I showed you that the other day. Where's all the... where is it? It's here somewhere. Where's all the planets, the charts for... Damn it. Oh, maybe that's it. Anyway, okay, never mind. Sorry, I lost it. But anyway, I'm alive here right now. All of us are here alive right now. Most of us were born during this period here, somewhere in here. If you're in the 20-somethings, you're over here. You don't know anything else. But you're born and raised in a world of complete fraud, betrayal, lies, and deception when it comes to money and government. Okay? It's sad. It doesn't have to be that way, but it is. Anyway, this is all going to go on to a repeat cycle. And this has to die before it can be reborn. So the Pluto-Neptune energy is going to be mind-boggling. It's happening right now. So why did I mention this date in particular? Well, it's because Saturn over here is at like 1 degree Pisces. So the energy is very fierce, raw, and powerful. And what's happening is, where did I see it? What's happening is, the fraud, betrayal, deception, lies is now on full display in Washington. It doesn't even matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a Libertarian, a conservative. It doesn't matter. They're all at it in some way or another. And there's a handful of people who are doing the best they can to hold these elites accountable. But you have to understand, the elites they have so much power, so much money, and so much control. And the last thing they want to do is give it away or lose it. But they are struggling. The fakers who've been bleeding this country dry, they're struggling to perpetuate the fraud because we, the people, en masse, are starting to wake up and demand that at least some of our elected so-called representatives are going to hold the elites accountable. And it's actually happening. And the most obvious example, of course, is Grandpa Joe and his family. They are being outed big time. The way I see it, this is the biggest crime in American history. There are some horrific crimes with the perpetual wars that really didn't have to happen. I don't want to go into that too much, but pretty much ever since the end of World War II, we've been in perpetual war. And most of that is constructed. It's by design. It's not out of defense. It's by design to enrich the elites and the military-industrial complex. That is a well-known phenomenon now, but that's basically how it works. We don't have to be at war. There are other ways to conduct a society and a group of people and a country. And I feel that some of our leaders really betrayed us. The real betrayals began with a fellow called Bill when he signed the NAFTA agreements. He actually believed that the Chinese Communist Party would basically appease and switch around and basically give us 10 or 15 years and we're going to come totally around free market, capitalist. We're going to become just like America. And Bill Clinton bought it. And he sold out working class America. All the jobs sucked out of America, sent overseas, in order that America could exploit the slave camps in China. And then it went on from there. The Bush regime, the Bush dynasty, warmongers, war. And then so we did the Clintons, the Bushes, and then the Obamas, where they just put socialized programs everywhere. And of course we got the Bidens now that have taken it to the max. They're just totally maxed out on communism and fraud and theft. It's mind-boggling. It's really, really mind-boggling to witness. And a lot of people in the federal government, from what I can tell, are colluding. Even if you're a so-called right-wing Republican, a lot of them are actually still in collusion with the communists and the Marxists because it's a way to suck money out of the people. And they've been very, very successful at it, and they are not going to let go until we hold them accountable. And so if you watch Washington closely, I try to, you can just see there's just an ocean of fraud, lies that's being exposed. Grandpa Joe and his whole family, that's probably one of the best examples. But also the American global financial system is the other thing that's being outed. And the way that people are starting to realize it is because they're going broke because of inflation. Inflation that didn't have to happen, that doesn't have to happen. It's all by design to exploit us for their benefit. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there. Saturn is going to hold the Neptune lies accountable. I know I always go on about these horrible things about Neptune. Neptune is absolutely beautiful when it has a healthy expression. You might be a divinely inspired musician or an artist or something, or a really good psychic medium, or you might be very good with health and healing through like going beyond traditional Western medicine. In other words, you actually invoke the healing power of love. That's possible. It's all doable. So, let me go over here a moment. I've got a little treat for you, and I'm going to show you in a few moments, hopefully. I've got a new app. It's taken me years to find something that actually works, that I don't have to, because I can't afford the real heavy software. But anyway, here's the thing that really kind of scared me last night. There's a station called Redacted, and they do a lot of reporting that you will not see on mainstream. Some of this also comes from Telegram, and Love Triber sends me things, and I lose track of a lot of it. And some of the things that stick, I will try to share with you. Chinese males. There's tens of thousands of Chinese males now as a specific category crossing the southern border. And it doesn't make any sense unless you understand that they're going to be recruited into the U.S. military, because there is a provision in U.S. law that allows non-citizens who are willing to go into the military and go through, let's say, an induction process and a federal background check, and willing to sign an agreement that they're willing to fight and die for the country, then they will be granted citizenship. And guess what that does? It allows for voter registration. So what does that do? It allows for, just like the rest of the invasion, millions and millions of votes that are being basically built to support the fraud that we have today. Okay? It's very, very, very hard to stop this right now. It's incredibly hard because of the way our legal system works. And it's happening right in front of our faces. In New York, Kathy Hochul is now sending out packages to tens of thousands of migrants and invaders to get their voter registration filled out. They're not even citizens. They're illegals. It's mind-boggling. There's another story I just found where it's on the Epoch Times. A lot of these invaders are being handed now. They've got to the... Let's see if I can actually find it here. Maybe I've actually got it. Hold on. It was staggering. Where was it? I think I lost it. Sorry. Oh, did I lose it? I've lost it. I like to go to the Epoch Times because they have stuff from all over the world, and I really trust them. Anyway, one of the little channels that I like Redacted, one of the reporters found out that a lot of these invaders are getting $5,000 in gift cards, plus free phones, plus their airline tickets to wherever they want to go inside America. Okay? To me, this is frightening. Can you imagine what I could do with a $5,000 gift card and I'm already an American citizen? What about you? What about all the homeless people in Las Vegas or Los Angeles or Chicago, New York, Portland, Seattle, San Antonio? What about all that? And they're American citizens. What about the veterans that are being kicked out of hotels and homes to make way for these folks? It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Mark Zuckerberg, is now being brought back into Congress again because he is refusing to do what has to be done. Okay, basically look what's happening. With Facebook and Instagram, they're still operating as a free open gateway for predators, sex predators, and marketplace for kids. Sex as a marketplace for kids. And Zuckerberg is trying to defend it. To me, that is sick. Another thing I'm noticing is that it's impossible to deny it now. The Chinese economy is literally bleeding out. They are actually having a real live deflation, which is the scary version of deflation, not the good version. They're having scary deflation because they are imploding over here in real time. And if you want to see what happens in a communist country when it falls apart, because eventually they all fall apart, watch what's happening deep inside China. Watch what's happening in China, in Argentina. It's basically a communist country. Brazil is now a communist country, and they're freaking out. Venezuela is a communist country. They're freaking out. Next thing, let's just admit it, the Ukraine war is not winnable. But in the American Congress, they have to pretend that it is in order to keep the money flowing, honey. It's all about the money, honey. And that feeds back to the military-industrial complex and all the kickbacks and perks for the politicians who enable it. I'm going to show you this little amazing cool thing that I got now. I can't cover 90% of the stuff that I'm discovering. It's just mind-boggling, the changes that are happening. All right, have a look at this, folks. See if I can find it for you. Can you see this? This is like an astrodoodle. Do you recognize that? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. They got green lines and they got red lines. Okay? Now, this might speed up my astrodoodles because I can just pop out this chart whenever I want. It's on my tablet. It's on my phone. You can't put it on a desktop. But it's amazing. Now watch this. Yeah, I love it because I used to be able to do this on one of my old softwares. I'm going to show you. Watch the moon, okay? Watch the moon. I'm going to make this like a ticking clock through time. Now this is for the whole of Earth, okay? There's no title, no destination, no location planned. So this will always stay at Aries here. So I'm going to move forward in 3-hour increments. Watch this. Oh, sorry. Okay, now I'm going to move forward in increments of 1 day. You see what I'm talking about? Look at that date, for example. Sun and moon very close to Mars in Sagittarius. Hard squared with Neptune. Look at that. And Venus, the money planet in Scorpio, 8th house, directly opposite Jupiter in the 2nd house of money. Ha, ha, ha. You can bet there's going to be some financial shenanigans on that date, and you can bet there's going to be some incredible fraud, deception, lies, and betrayal that's going to be outed in Washington at this time. That's actually the Sagittarius new moon. It's not far away. I'm going to just keep going a little bit. Watch. Over here. Now I'm going to bring the sun all the way up into... Do you see how some of these are staying still? Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, they're staying very still. Okay, now watch. Watch. We're getting very, 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 very close. The moon is whizzing around. Look at that! Okay? That's January the 11th. Look at that huge cluster. That is terrifying. And where's the sun? Where's the sun? Okay. Pluto is now at 30 degrees here. So this is the 11th of January now. Basically, now we've got the moon conjunct Pluto, and okay, there we have the sun conjunct Pluto, 29 degrees. This is going to be a monumental time period. We're at the end of January, and then we're going to go into, watch this, once we get into February, look at this beast coming up here. Sorry, I went too fast. I went too fast for you. Anyway, January, February are going to be, I don't know how to describe it. We'll deal with it when we get there, okay? I'm going to switch that off and go back. Okay, so that's for today right now. I just wanted to share that with you. Okay? I'm going to do one more thing here. This is personal. This is very private stuff, but I feel I need to share it because this is where we're headed. All of this that we're talking about, you could tell this story through the world of money, through the lens of gold, through the lens of the US dollar, okay? Because the journey of the US dollar follows this curve very accurately. And what's happening now is because over the last 250 years, people have realized that the dollar can be faked and manipulated, and wealth can be destroyed for the people in order to move it into the pockets of the elites. And that's now a global realization, okay? That's why we're having this cataclysmic implosion of the global financial system. Because eventually, human people are going to want a system that represents truth, honesty, and reality. It's extremely hard to do because the fraudsters are not going to help. But there is a movement. It's in the world of cryptos. Cryptocurrencies. Crypto means private, secret, like a code. Let's see if I've got it here. So, I'm just going to share something personal. I'm a newbie. I have been exploring crypto for years. And I wish I had learned about it years ago. I would be in a different life, living a very different life. But I didn't know. Anyway, once I understood some of the essentials, I thought I have to do this because this is a possible way that we can reset the world into a more honest form of exchange, real money for real value, services and goods. But first, we have to establish a way to contain and store that value. So Bitcoin was an attempt to make a world currency. It didn't work, it failed, but it still acts as some people think of it as digital gold. That works. And then there was another thing called Ethereum, which was designed to allow the whole world of crypto to navigate between itself and each other. And that worked, but it's very, very clumsy. Bitcoin is incredibly clumsy. Ethereum is very, very clumsy. And pretty much the whole of the crypto world operates inside the Ethereum world, and Bitcoin is all on its own. And there's a particular environment that I'm interested in where the creator realized there's a way to do this that's going to work much better for the people. So he's created an environment based around a token called Hex. And it's a very controversial token because it defies everything else in terms of logic regarding money and what it is and how people see ways to get shortcuts to wealth, shortcuts to millions, and by just using your wits. So in the world of crypto, just like in the world of fake money, in the world of dollars, there's the foreign exchange markets. And trillions of dollars exchange every day in World War III, which is where the real battle is happening in the world stage. World War III is happening between the US dollar and everything else around the world, every other currency. China wants to participate, but anyway. So crypto offers a world that maintains value outside of let's say, the imaginary world of the US dollar. Now, I don't want to get into too much trouble here because since it's essentially the reality of today's life, even though it's at its core a fraud, we don't have anything else. The nearest, most stable thing we have on earth financially is the United States dollar and gold. That's it. There's also oil, gas, timber, uranium. What are the big ones? Things of genuine value. Anyway, the thing is, when Bitcoin was invented, the idea was to have like a universal Nizara token that had pure value and retained its pure value for all time and could not be distorted through the markets with inflation. And it still has that basically written into its code. And when it was first invented, it was very, very difficult to actually get into the world of Bitcoin because it's really just digital programming codes that lives on the internet. And it was used as a system. The first people, as always, are the criminals. They're the ones who figure it out as a way to operate in a financial system that is outside the fiat system. And then they do their shenanigans, and then they cash in and bring their money back into the fiat system to enjoy the fruits of their crime. And that's fine. But eventually, I mean, it was called Silk Road, that they were outed for all their criminal enterprises, and the very early exchanges for Bitcoin were very, very hard to navigate. You had to know a lot of computer code to get in, to be able to participate, and then to get out in order to cash out. Very, very difficult. But nowadays, it's smooth. You can take your bank account, you can link it up to Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini or Binance, move your fiat money into crypto money and play around. So anyway, the guy that I like has taken it a step further, where he realized Bitcoin and Ethereum are very clunky. It's very expensive to operate in those networks, and it's potentially very dangerous. Bitcoin is just a free market, free for all. The price goes up, the price goes down. It behaves very much like gold. Ethereum is very similar, but the value in Ethereum is its operability. There's another one called XRP, which is essentially a tool, a mechanism that, again, it's computer code that's designed to facilitate the flow of fiat money all across the world. That particular system is incredibly efficient, terrifyingly efficient, that it's terrifying to the existing status quo of the banks, because it means the existing banks are going to lose a lot of their legacy systems where they leech with fees, and processes to leech money out of the system for themselves. XRP destroys all of that. Then we take it another step further. Another thing that happens in the crypto world is that you get these very active traders. There's a lot of fraud, amazing amounts of fraud, where very smart cryptographers create a crypto token, tell everybody on the crypto world it's amazing, a bunch of idiots buy it, and the price goes up and up and up and up, and then the originator goes, ha ha ha, now I'm going to sell. So he cashes out, takes millions, and he screws everybody else. That happens all day, every day in crypto. That's why crypto has such a bad reputation. Trading crypto on an exchange is incredibly precarious, very ultra super high risk, unless you are hyper sophisticated. So there's another approach where you go long, where you basically think of it, well, if this is going to work, let's turn it into certificates of deposit. Put your money into something that is going to grow according to a computer code, very, very methodically. And so this was invented. It's called Hex. The difficult side is that Hex is very, very new. Hex is like what was happening 10, 12, 13 years ago in Bitcoin. The thing about Hex is that, like, the worst thing you can do is trade it. The best thing you can do is what they call stake it, where you lock it onto a very long-term piece of digital code contract. And so you get wealthy. The tricky part is, of course, price maintenance, because it only works when the price is appropriate. And just like Bitcoin, the original price of Bitcoin went rip and then crashed to nothing for about a decade, until people started to understand Bitcoin. And then, of course, Bitcoin is now on another planet. So there are Bitcoin billionaires out there. Hex, let me go back again. Hex is like a super streamlined Bitcoin with very little dead weight. PulseX is like Ethereum, but instead of costing $100 to close a transaction, it only costs like 12 or 13 cents. Okay? You need Ethereum to do almost anything in the crypto world. In the crypto world, a lot of people like to exchange their cryptos to go from one to another very rapidly so they can take advantage of the markets. Those are called swaps. The big one is called Uniswap, and it's become quite expensive and clumsy, and it only works with certain limitations. So what this guy did, his name's Richard Hart, he decided, I'm just going to streamline the code for Bitcoin. I'm going to call it Hex. I am going to streamline the code for Ethereum. I'm going to call it Pulse Chain. And then I'm going to create a bridge off of the Uniswap, and I'm going to call it Pulse Bridge. That's it. So I'm going to go to a little chart now. I just want to share because I'm learning all this, okay? I'm studying this because I have to, because I've put my tiny resources into this, and I believe it because I've studied it. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like a work of art, but it's still very, very early. It's in the seed. It's still in the embryo. It's still at the germination phase. So I'm trying to get ahead so that maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, I'll be loaded. We'll see. Anyway, what I'm trying to show you in a diagram is this. I've been watching all sorts of videos and seminars to learn how to do this, because this is what it looked like very early on to try and get into the world of Bitcoin. Today, I'm just going to show you, see, all of this that I'm talking about here is my way to try and escape from the fraud over here. Okay, that's why I do this. So let's start the journey. You take in your American dollars and you put them in a bank account, probably one of the bigger banks. You connect that bank account to what's called a central exchange. The big ones are Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken, Binance. Then you take that money, Coinbase dollar, and you move it into what's called the world of Ethereum. It's a very scary process just to do this. You have to have what's called a digital wallet to do this. I use MetaMask. From there, that's what people do. That's the limit for most people. They operate in that world and they try to make profits, and then they cash out and go back out here and take their millions out this way. I'm going into a completely different world, which is layers deeper. So I take let's say you buy some Ethereum, you take it over here, you go to what's called a swap, a place where you can swap your tokens around. You take it from there. This is a very scary process because you have to know how to move crypto addresses. Okay, I am using something called app.uniswap.org because it's the biggest one in the world. It's very effective, but it only works here in this world. So how do you get from this world to my world? It had to be created. And so this guy created it. Pulse Chain and Pulse X. These are the tools that allow this to happen. It's terrifying because I'm scared to make a mistake, because every time you do one of these moves, it's incredibly complicated. I'm watching videos to study it, and I've understood some of this so far, and I, in theory, understand some of these, but in execution, it's terrifying. So I just wanted to share with you, I've been studying this for years, and I'm now at the point where I think I can understand it enough to execute over here and eventually enjoy. Okay, we'll see what happens. But I wanted to share that with you. I'm not a crypto expert, okay? Just don't quote me. I just wanted to show you that I'm doing what I can with what resources that I have to try and carve out a parallel world to the fakery that we're living right now. It is very, very complex. The people I'm studying are already deep into the world of Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X. They understand it. Some of them are multimillionaires because they got in very early, like three 3.5 years ago. Then it went up and then it went down. I'm kind of in this level down here. And eventually it's going to go up. It's inevitable that it will go up. But it does take, I'm guessing it'll take 3, 5, 7 years for people to understand this stuff, to the point where the navigation through the crypto world to where I operate becomes like, oh, I can do it just like that. I'm not there. It's terrifying. I play with computers all day. I'm a musician. I'm an artist and a writer. I had a really good education, but I am way on the far limits of my abilities to deal with this crypto stuff. It's a complete mind warp because it's all about reality. And basically what I'm doing is freedom. I'm exercising freedom. I want to access freedom so I can escape the tyranny. It's just one of my efforts. I wish you all the best too. Hi, Steffi. I haven't honestly, people, I haven't read a lot of the chats. Actually, by the way, mentioning crypto, as you know, El Salvador is now a crypto country with Bitcoin. Javier Milei is a Bitcoin fan. They might use it in Argentina for certain things. A couple of other countries are considering Bitcoin, but again, Bitcoin is very, very, very clunky. Okay, it's already kind of outdated. It's just that it's like the original thing. That's what people know. So that's all you can talk about is Bitcoin. So all over the world, what's happening is the Neptune energy is being outed right now. Everybody is looking around them, their life, their society, especially their so-called leaders, and starting to realize that, my God, we've been betrayed, defrauded, lied to, deceived. They've stolen from us. They ripped our value out from us to satisfy their maniacal lust for power and money and control. The elites, they can't help themselves. So that's just who they are and what they do. So how do we get out of it? How do we live through that? It's very, very, very difficult. I look around me and I see my net worth. My net worth is what it is. But the value of my net worth goes from here to here to here to here every single day. Just like a lot of Americans. I work with a very, very tight, very tiny, limited budget. And when the price of food and gasoline goes up 30, 40%, it's crippling. What's happening to millions of American people is happening to me as well. I'm not unusual in that way. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. None of it had to happen. None of it. The reason it's happening is because of the criminals, the fraudsters, the liars and the thieves who have lied their way to the very, very top. That's why the people at the very, very top protect themselves by covering the lies of their buddies. That's what's happening in Washington right now. The whole of the Washington elite are doing everything they can to cover up Grandpa Joe and his crime. He's the worst criminal in American history. He's completely owned by China. He's completely sold out to China. His whole family enabled it. And it's crippling for hundreds of millions of people just so that he could get whatever millions he got. It's disgusting. But it's happening. It's just what people do. Some people are that way. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to share a couple of the stories that really zapped me today. There's going to be more tomorrow. Now that Neptune is going direct and Saturn is putting intense pressure onto Neptune, we're going to see so much fraud, deception, betrayal come out. It's going to be exposed. People who want freedom and truth and honesty are going to hold the tyrannical liars, dictators, and the monsters accountable for all their fraud, deception, lies. They're going to hold them accountable, including their fake ideologies. All of it is going to come unglued. And the more that the free people put on the pressure, the more that the evil people are going to hold on tighter and tighter and tighter. And eventually there's going to be a point of critical mass where it goes, and we're going to witness that live in real time. It just happened in Argentina. Look what happened in Argentina. That could easily happen in America. Americans don't know it, but it could. I better get going. I've got so much to do. It's so late. Steffi, you're absolutely correct. It doesn't matter how golden your investments are. Inflation is inflation, and depression is a depression. It's impossible to stop what's happening. There's going to be some form of depression, recession, deflation. Ideally, the fraudsters would just basically let go and admit we can't control this anymore, and they would allow for a massive deflation. It would be great for we the people. It would be very, very painful for the people who are totally vested into the beast system. Hi and bye. I'm heading out, Tina. I'm just going to cut it off here right now tonight, okay? I've blabbered enough. I had to get this out of my system because I'm sort of excited about this Neptune turning direct. Even though it's very tragic and scary in some ways, yes, I could have made good investments. If I knew what I had, I don't want to go into my sob stories, Esther. It's so painful for me. If you knew my astrology, you would understand. If you knew my personal astrology. But I don't want to go there. It's very painful. All right, I am going to head out. I wish you all the best, everybody. Thank you for listening. I'll keep the chat open for a few minutes if you want to say goodbye to your buddies.